Oh, this is good. I like it.
Okay, the next command will be the command to fire. You might want to cover your ears. Fire! So the cannon that we're firing this morning was officially known during the Civil War as a Model 1857 light 12-pound gun howitzer. Or more commonly, since that's a very long, difficult name, this was more commonly known as simply a 12-pound Napoleon. So why do we call this cannon a 12-pounder? Certainly not because the cannon weighs 12 pounds. The cannon actually weighs about a ton. We call it a 12-pounder because the basic projectile that it fires weighs about 12 pounds. And this cannon is a smooth bore. There's no riflings, no grooves cut into the inside of the barrel. It's like, for those of you who are familiar with modern firearms, it's like a big shotgun barrel. It's smooth on the inside. So the basic projectile is just simply a round cannonball, round solid cannonball. This doesn't explode. This weighs about 12 pounds. And this would be used if you're going to fire this cannon at long range. This cannon has a range of about a mile. So if you wanted to hit a target at that distance, or maybe if you wanted to knock down some kind of fortification or batter down a building, you'd use this solid shot. You could also use this against masses of troops. And remember, during the Civil War, they were still using Napoleonic tactics, linear tactics. So that means that everybody lined up, shoulder to shoulder, whether it was infantry or cavalry, they all basically did the same thing. Big blocks, big tight blocks of soldiers. So you could actually fire this at those formations. And if you're doing that, you would use what they called ricochet fire. And that means that you would aim the cannon so that this cannonball would actually hit the ground in front of the people you're firing at. And if you aim the cannon just right, this cannonball, when it hits the ground, will skip. The same idea as skipping a stone across water. If you're really good at it, you can get it to skip 2, 3, maybe even more times. Well, this cannonball will do the same thing. It'll hit the ground. When it hits the ground, it's going to throw up a lot of dirt, pieces of rocks, pieces of wood. It's going to maybe hit some people in that formation. It's going to throw a lot of debris in the air. Then it's going to go a distance, hit the ground again, do the same thing. Throw lots of debris up in the air. So it's going to be very, very frightening, very, very confusing. Maybe some of the idea with this is more to try and scare the enemy, unnerve the enemy, than it is to actually hit people. So as your target gets a little bit closer, you can shift over to what is called shell. And shell is the same idea. It's a round cannonball, round iron ball, but this time it's hollow on the inside. And that hollow cavity is going to be filled with a powder charge. And before this shell was put into the cannon, they would take a fuse. In this case, this is a paper fuse. So basically, this is a paper tube that has a black powder compound on the inside. That paper fuse is going to be inserted into a hole called the fuse plug on the top of the shell. Now when the cannon's fired, the explosion inside the cannon is going to light that fuse. This is going to fly through the air down the range, and of course, when that fuse burns down to that charge on the inside, it'll explode. Now in movies, you've probably seen a lot of explosions going off in the ground. And that's not what you want to do with these shells. If this hits the ground and explodes, it's going to throw up a lot of dirt, not really hurt anybody. What you want this to do is explode in the air, over the heads of the people that you're firing at. Because then it's going to break up into 3 or 4 big hunks of iron, and it's going to rain down on their heads from above. Now as your target gets a little closer, there's another projectile similar to the shell that you could use, and that's called case shot. And case is the same idea. It's a hollow cannonball that has a powder charge on the inside, but this time instead of just having powder, there's also iron balls, small iron balls inside that shell. So when this one explodes, not only do you have a couple big hunks of iron, but you also have those iron balls flying through the air. Makes it a little bit more effective and a little bit more deadly. And then finally, when your target gets really close, and for this cannon that means 400 yards or less, you could convert over to canister. And canister is basically a tin can that's filled with iron balls. And this in essence is a large shotgun shell. When the cannon fires, the tin can comes apart, and just to give you an idea of how that works, this is the tin can from a canister round that was actually fired out of this cannon, and then these iron balls are going to come out of the cannon like buckshot coming out of a shotgun. It's very deadly, very effective at close range. Now when loading and firing these cannons, at least for a smoothbore cannon like ours, they would use what's called fixed ammunition. And that means that you would take the projectile, the cannonball, you would strap it to a wooden block called a sabot, which would act as kind of a wadding to help push the cannonball out of the barrel, and then tied onto that sabot would be a powder bag. So that everything you need to fire the cannon is together in one cartridge, so to speak. So this all goes into the cannon at the same time. The powder, the sabot, and the cannonball makes it a lot quicker to load, a lot easier to fire. Now, as I mentioned, this is a smoothbore cannon. And it has a range of about a mile. During the Civil War, they also started to use rifled cannons. The big difference between a rifle cannon and a smoothbore is, of course, there's rifling, there's grooves cut into the inside of the barrel. The idea with the rifling is you're going to fire a projectile that's more conical in shape. It's not round now, it's more conical in shape. And that rifling is going to make this spin as it comes out of the barrel. And if the projectile is spinning, it's going to go further and it's going to fly more accurately than the round ball coming out of that smoothbore barrel. Same concept as a football, as a quarterback throwing a football. When a quarterback throws a football, they put a backspin on the football. They make it spiral. That makes the football go further, makes it fly more accurately. Same idea with the rifles. So a rifle has a range of about 2 miles. So it's about double the range of this smoothbore cannon. There's some disadvantages though. With the rifle, you're firing a solid projectile like this. Again, it's more conical in shape. They would commonly call this a bolt rather than a cannonball. Because it's conical in shape, can you imagine trying to get this thing to ricochet and bounce? Doesn't really work that well. And you also had shell, but the shell would use a percussion fuse, which means it has to hit something in order to explode. A lot of times that meant that these would hit the ground, bore down into the ground a couple inches, and then the ground would make them explode. Again, you're throwing up lots of dirt, not really hurting anybody. The other disadvantage to a rifle is the rifle that they would use out in the field in a battle like Battle of Gettysburg. Commonly, it's going to be 3 inches in diameter, so it's going to be this size, which means that when you have to start using canister, your canister round, your shotgun shell, is going to be about this big. Well, with this 12-pound Napoleon, we've got a canister round that's that big. So which one, if you've got a line of the enemy at that fence right over there, about ready to capture your cannon, which size shell do you want to be using? Which size shotgun shell do you want to use? This one or this one? So even though the smoothbores don't have the range of a rifle, in a lot of ways they're more flexible. You can do a lot more with them. Standing here where we are, if you look to your right, you really can't see 2 miles. You can see the top of a barn that's on the next ridge over that's almost 2 miles away. But a lot of battlefields here during the Civil War, you can't see for 2 miles. So in a lot of cases, that's going to negate the advantage of the rifle. The smoothbore is going to be a lot more useful on a lot of these battlefields. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to load and fire the cannon again. And again, I will let you know when we're ready to fire. Gunner? Go. 1,000 yards. Load. Ready! Okay, next command is the command to fire, so you might want to protect your hearing.